Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into one of the biggest, most fundamental questions of all time. One that's been at the very heart of philosophy for literally thousands of years. We're going to try to map out the major ideas that have tried to answer it.
And this is it. This is the big one. How ought I to live? Now, this isn't just some abstract puzzle for philosophers to chew on. This is maybe the fundamental practical question of ethics. It's all about what we should do, how we should guide our actions every single day of our lives. So, you might think there are a million different answers to a question that huge, right? And in a way, there are. But what's really interesting is that most of them can be sorted into three main territories on our moral map. Three major ways of thinking about what really makes an action right or wrong. Okay, so our first approach argues that to figure out if an action is the right one, you have to look at where it leads. It's all about the consequences, the final outcome of what you do.
This is what we call consequentialism. And the core idea is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. The morally right thing to do is whatever produces the best overall result. From this point of view, the ends absolutely can, and often do, justify the means.
You've probably heard of the most famous example of this, right? Utilitarianism. For a classic utilitarian, the best consequence isn't vague at all. It's very specific. It means creating the greatest possible happiness or pleasure for the greatest number of people. So, in a way, morality becomes a kind of ethical math problem.
All right, let's move over to the second major territory on our map. What if some actions are just, wrong, no matter how good the outcome might be? This approach says that morality isn't about the destination at all. It's about following the right path to get there.
So this is deontology. For a deontologist, morality is all about duty and following the rules. Think of principles like don't lie, don't steal, don't murder. These are seen as absolute moral laws that we have a duty to follow, period. Even if, say, telling a lie in one specific situation might lead to a better outcome.
But, this immediately brings up a huge challenge. If we're going to live by a set of rules, we need to know exactly what those rules are and what really counts as breaking them. For instance, is just withholding some of the truth the same thing as telling an outright lie? The details here matter a lot.
So where do these rules even come from? Well, thinkers have looked in a bunch of different places. Some say they're divine commands from God. Others believe they're rooted in a kind of natural law, just part of being human. Philosophers like Immanuel Kant argued that we can figure out universal moral laws just by using pure reason. And then there's social contract theory, which suggests morality is basically a bargain we all make to survive and live together without chaos. Okay, for our third and final approach, we're going to shift gears completely. It moves away from looking at the action itself or its outcome, and instead, it zooms in on the person who is doing the action. And this is virtue theory. It's less worried about those one-off, split-second decisions and more about the big picture of a person's entire life. The whole goal is to cultivate virtues, qualities like courage, honesty, loyalty, compassion, so that doing the right thing just becomes a natural part of who you are. The key question totally changes from what's the right thing to do to what would a good, virtuous person do in this situation? And that, of course, leads to a really big debate. Is it actually enough to just focus on being a good person? Critics of this view will ask if virtue theory can really give us clear, concrete guidance when we're facing a super tough moral dilemma. Can just asking, what would a courageous person do, really solve a complex ethical problem all by itself? It's a question philosophers are still talking about. So let's just recap for a second. You can really see how each of these theories gives us a totally different lens to look through, a different starting question. Consequentialism is looking forward, asking about the results. Deontology is kind of looking backward, focused on our duties and rules. And virtue theory, well, it's focused right on us, on our character.
Okay, so now that we've mapped out these three big continents of thought, there's an even bigger kind of meta question hanging over all of it. Is one of these maps the single correct one for everybody all the time? Or are there lots of different valid maps? This brings us right to the heart of the debate between universalism and relativism. A universalist would say that yes, there are objective moral truths. What's right and wrong applies to all people, in all places, at all times. But a relativist would argue, nope, there are no universal moral truths. Morality is just a product of a specific culture's or society's beliefs and customs.
So there you have it. We've sketched out the major continents on the map of moral theory. And these aren't just abstract ideas for a classroom. They are real, competing tools for navigating some of the most difficult decisions in our lives. They shape how we think about everything: justice, fairness, and the right way to live. So the question we want to leave you with is a personal one. Now that you've seen the maps, which compass are you going to use to find your way?